So welcome to, well, I was going to say the final day of National Apprenticeship Week, but it's not, because it does continue into the weekend, obviously, but it's, I guess, the final working day for probably a lot of us of National Apprenticeship Week. And it does actually bizarrely kind of, to a degree, close off a week where I started with UCAS, because back on Monday, and get me the name dropper, I was at the Houses of Parliament on Monday for a great, it was an awards presentation. We've been shortlisted for some awards and we're invited to Parliament to meet the great and the good. And in fact, Sarah Beale, the chief exec from AAT, was there, so I had a good natter with Sarah, and I bumped into Lindsay, the head of apprenticeships at UCAS, which was a great way to sort of start my week, knowing that I was going to be tailing it off with Teddie today. So I hope everyone has had a busy and energizing and exciting National Apprenticeship Week. I definitely think we need to pick up that discussion about when National Apprenticeship Week would be better placed, because we were talking about the fact that actually I think employers are recruiting earlier and earlier in the academic year, and whether National Apprenticeship Week, I don't know, should be October perhaps rather than in February, but that's maybe something for us to pick up elsewhere. But I'm really delighted. I mean, apprenticeships, I train accountants and have done for over a quarter of a century now. And in that 26 years that I've been training accountants, I think the biggest transformational change I've seen is the impact of apprenticeships. Some of you might remember the old apprenticeship frameworks from sort of pre-2017, and we always delivered under the frameworks, but you might remember, if you were involved, they were quite limited in scope, quite niche. It was basically just for people doing AAT. It was just for school leavers. Most of the learners at that level were probably 18, 19, 20 years old, say. At that point, I would say maybe 5% of the students that we support at First Intuition would be apprentices. Now, under the new standards, and since the levy was brought in, it's probably 85%. So it's been that scale of change actually that we've seen. And I think it's been a fantastic change. I mean, obviously there are financial benefits for using apprenticeships, whether you're a levy payer making use of the contributions in your levy pots, or for the non-levy payers, the co-fund where you can get potentially 95% funding of the apprenticeship costs. So there are big potential financial benefits for organisations using apprenticeships, but for me, the financial benefits are really just a quite crude incentive to get employers to adopt them. For me, the benefits are much broader, around the additional skills and behaviours, for instance, that apprentices are trained in alongside the technical knowledge for their accountancy exams. They get better support, both from their own employers, I think, and from training providers like First Intuition. I think retention of apprentices tends to be better than for non-apprentices. And I think increasingly it's become a really important recruitment pipeline. I think, and it's taking time, but I think after much work, apprenticeships are starting to get the same kind of messaging at school and college as degree pathways have done for many years. So I think young adults now, increasingly, they are thinking this binary choice after they leave education of, am I going to go to university and do a degree, or am I going to do an apprenticeship? And I think for employers, and we've seen a few employers who've adopted apprenticeships because they felt that without an apprenticeship program, it would actually disadvantage their recruitment processes. So, I think, the recruitment, the retention, big benefits. And that's very much where we're going to be focusing on today in this webinar, because I am delighted to be joined by Teddie from UCAS. So actually, Teddie, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of your role?
Yeah, of course. So my role is actually brand new to UCAS and has been built due to the growth that UCAS has been doing within the apprenticeship sector. So my role at UCAS is Customer Success Director for Early Careers. So I manage a team of amazing account managers. And what we do is help employers like yourself reach future talent, create marketing and attraction campaigns for apprenticeship schemes, but we also do it all the way through, sort of internships and graduates. So that's the role that I have at UCAS.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I mean, for me, it's obviously UCAS stands for the University and College Application Service. And I did joke in a meeting with the skills minister, because again, I can name drop with the best of them. But I did joke that maybe the A needs to start standing for apprenticeships, given the predominance they're going to see. And having heard Lindsay speak a couple of times, so Lindsay is the head of apprenticeships at UCAS, and again, that to me is just an exciting job title, head of apprenticeships at UCAS. I can't imagine that job has even existed for all that long. But Lindsay uses this phrase I love of parity of search. So when young adults go onto the UCAS website, they will see apprenticeship opportunities side by side with degree pathways. So that visibility, I think, is going to be a massive step forward. I think it's also going to force schools to up their game. I think we would all acknowledge that sometimes schools are still a little bit degree pathway orientated, often because that's what the teachers themselves did, and you tend to advise what you know best. I know there's some stats that UCAS came up with, Teddie, that I think was it 74% of teachers are comfortable advising on degree pathways, but only 24% or something were comfortable with apprenticeship pathways. So, I hope the work you're doing will really encourage or force schools to raise their games, that actually they will up their own knowledge on apprenticeships.
Yeah, and I think it's also UCAS has kind of taken it on ourselves that it's down to us as well to offer that information, advice and guidance, not only just to the students but to the teachers and the advisors. I mean, we've supported them for 30 years on university applications, and I think we're the best place to kind of go, right, we're also going to help give you information, advice and guidance from supporting students through the apprenticeship application phase. And I think long term, and I'll touch on this later, but we have so many more products in the pipeline, one of them being an application service for apprenticeships. And by no means is this going to be a mirror version of what we do in the university space, because it wouldn't work the same. We're currently mapping out how exactly it's going to work for apprenticeships, but that should be a massive tick in the box in terms of helping advisors, making it easier for students, and hopefully making it easier for the employers as well.
Fantastic. And I know, there's going to be advice given to parents as well, for instance, through the website, which again, they are such an important influencer for what their children, much as I don't feel like I influence my own daughter's choices in any aspect of their lives at the moment. But I think having parents, because sometimes parents can be the blocker because they still think of apprenticeships as they were 30 years ago when they were going through that sort of process. Now, I can see we've already got questions coming through. So, in fact, Richard, I think Teddie will be covering your point in her presentation in terms of when can we start advertising on the apprentice search tool on UCAS. I'll leave that to Teddie to cover. Jane, I think an interesting question there about our education providers still measured on their progress to uni stats. And I guess the corollary to that is, to what extent will they be measured on progress to apprenticeships going forward? Teddie, do you know much about that, actually?
Unfortunately, I am not the best person to answer that question, but we can go away and find out for you.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that is still a bit of a blocker, that I think the schools are obviously focused on what their rankings are going to be based on, and I still think there's a lot of that focus on the university route. So yeah, Jane, I think that's certainly something that hopefully will be a work in progress. So Teddie, I mean, how has this week been for you and your team?
It's been amazing. It's been the biggest National Apprenticeship Week for UCAS so far. So we have been across the whole of the UK. Obviously, like you mentioned, Gareth, we're at Parliament. We've been in Norfolk. We've been London, Manchester. So it's been absolutely amazing. And for the first time ever this year, we actually hosted our own National Apprenticeship Week event with the Association of Apprenticeships at Mansion House, where we saw so many employers attend. And it was just great to see that all of these employers are just as enthusiastic about the steps that UCAS are taking in the space, and how involved everyone wants to be. So I think that was definitely the biggest positive from this week that we've had.
Fantastic. And I mean, I guess that must follow on from a fairly busy 2023.
Yeah, it's been massive. Like you mentioned, the parity across UCAS.com. So the fact that any student can, you know, type in the main home search, they type in accounting, it's complete parity of what comes up. So whether that's university courses side by side, the apprenticeship vacancies, but also we've got employer profiles coming up side by side with university profiles. So it was a massive, massive step for UCAS, and it's a massive step for the industry as a whole. So I think that is the biggest thing that's happened to us during 2023. We've also partnered with the DFE. I'm not sure how many people are aware of that because we have shouted about it quite a bit. But we've partnered with the DFE on an Early Connect pilot. So the idea of the Early Connect pilot is to ensure that we are giving support to young people who are interested in applying for apprenticeships, but also making it easier for the employers and making it easier for the advisors as well, who are going to be supporting the students going down those routes. So it's been a massive year for us. But again, like I mentioned, 2024 is going to be absolutely massive as well. We have so much stuff in the pipeline, and lots of it is around advice and guidance for all areas: students, parents, advisors, everyone, and then also the new application service that is going to be coming out hopefully back end of this year, but maybe next year.
And I know, you know, at First Intuition, we are proud, would be an understatement, that we're working with you on the Accountancy and Finance Industry Guide.
Yep.
In fact, I'm due in my office on Monday in Cambridge to do some video work for, you know, a video we're going to be putting on the website there. And, you know, for me, actually, when I told my daughters this, who are 17 and 14, that, you know, we were going to be plastered on the UCAS website, they didn't know whether to be really proud or absolutely mortified that Daddy's business was going to be in front of a lot of their friends, you know, classmates. So, you know, it's I think it's, yeah, well, game changing is the word I always use for this. So well done, and really thank you. And thank you for coming today, actually, Teddie. So Teddie, I'm going to hand over to you now I know you've got a presentation to run. Yeah. As I said, you know, for the audience, questions that you've got, you know, put them in the chat box, or I'm sure, you know, if you want to unmute and just interject, I'm sure Teddie will be fine with that as well. But Teddie, if I can pass to you to take us through your slides.
Definitely. Let me just work out how to share it all. Share screen. Right, let me know if you can all see that.
Yeah, got that. Thank you, Teddie.
Perfect. Presentation view, amazing. So what I wanted to talk through first was this piece of research that the team came together at UCAS to give us an overview of what the landscape's going to look like over the next several years. So I think what we've done is we've looked at all the data trends from the UK, we've looked at international students, mature students, and what we can see is that we're going to forecast that by 2030, there's going to be 1 million applicants looking to apply for UK universities. So that's an absolutely massive number. And to put it into context, back in 2006, that number was only 500,000. So the growth is absolutely massive. And there's several factors that are driving this. So there is going to be a demographic boom of 18-year-olds in 2030. There's going to be more mature students applying, and then a huge increase of overseas students applying to UK universities. All bringing that together takes us up to that 1 million mark. So now this is going to create challenges for both in the education side of things, but also the wider economy as well. So to keep up, if all of those students had to go into university or whatever it may be, to keep up with that scale, we would have to build between 10 and 15 universities within the next 7 years. So that's never going to happen. So what this means is competition, there's going to be more choice, and people are going to need more and more support in navigating their next steps than ever before. So university pathways, apprenticeship pathways, and employment pathways are all going to be impacted by this rising number of people that are trying to work out their next steps. And it's worth considering as employers, does that mean that those from disadvantaged backgrounds are going to become squeezed out with this massive increase? Does this mean that recruiting the right people is going to become even more challenging in the coming years? So what part are employers going to need to play to help people make sure that they're able to navigate these choices? So this is essentially a massive reason why UCAS has decided to bring apprenticeships into the service. So because many of you know, like Gareth mentioned earlier, we'll always be known for the University Admissions Centre. And, you know, that is a massive core service that we do at UCAS. And we've been working in the apprenticeship sector for about the last 6 or 7 years now. But back in 2021, it was decided that we would give our apprenticeship work some more people, some more resource and money. And now it's embedded completely into the strategy of UCAS, and it's massively at the heart of what we do. So we are an independent charity with the objective to advance and assist in the advancement of education. So now apprenticeships is the biggest single investment at UCAS, which is a massive statement for someone like UCAS to make. And I'm definitely super proud to be part of this journey that UCAS is on. So in terms of UCAS, we are, you know, one of the most trusted sources of information when it comes to education or post-18 choices, which means that we're in a prime position to bring apprenticeship opportunities, advice and guidance to millions of people. So on the screen, I've just put down a couple of data stats on there. So every year we get over 1 million pre-applicant students sign up to the database. We have over 25 million visitors on ucas.com. And for this will be the first cycle where those 25 million people that come onto ucas.com will see apprenticeships at the same time as university courses, which is absolutely amazing. We reach over 30,000 parents, teachers and advisors every year with advice and guidance. And then we hold a series of discovery events across the UK. It's just shy of about 40, where we have over 150,000 students attend these events, which are predominantly year 12 students, so slightly earlier in the discovery process. Cool. So what that does is that leads me on to why we've done this piece of research. So we know that the number is going to be growing and growing and growing. So what UCAS is, we need to take a deep dive and actually understand how these young people make their decisions and at what point their decisions change and alter, and sort of why they would choose an apprenticeship or early careers pathways. So Project Next Generation, this is one of the reports that have come out in this series. And what we focused on is there are 6 key themes, which are listed. And what I'm going to do today is just touch on a couple of them that I think have stood out to me personally. And all of the data that we've got from today is from students from year 9 all the way through to year 12. So discovery is at the forefront of decision making and the need to be inspired. So on this graph, you can see that is the levels of consideration across all routes. So university, apprenticeship, and just working. And as you can see, they're fairly even through year 9, year 10, year 11. It's quite a steady flow. And then once we get into year 12, that university jumps right up to 71 and the apprenticeship goes all the way down to, 50%. So we have to look at it and kind of try and understand why it's doing that. And, does university interest grow in year 12 because it's the part most familiar with? It's what their parents have done predominantly, the teachers. So do they pick that because they're familiar and now it's time that they have to make a decision? So they've gone with that route. Do apprenticeships employment suffer because they have started as a minority, Or is it because there isn't enough awareness or education in the system to continually promote the benefits, not just at certain points in the year, like National Apprenticeship Week, but to have a continuous impact across, you know, all the way from year 9 all the way through to year 13. So if it is awareness is the issue or a knowledge gap, what can be done about it? So what we also decided to do is have a look at, you know, if it is knowledge, what can we do, and what is the best way, and how do they want to learn about apprenticeships? So we know that there needs to be an earlier and more consistent awareness. So the chosen route is it's digital, it's practical, much of it's user generated content. So like the TikTok style, that is what this audience is engaging with most. That's how they want to receive communications. That's how they learn. But also they're massively looking for the realities of an apprenticeship. So perhaps because for many of them, with the limited exposure, it's a reality that they can't picture themselves within, because it's going to be quite a different life than what they're currently doing now in school. So the key takeaways is that young people need inspiration and encouragement to discover available options and to help them have more certainty about the future. Next, we've got feelings and happiness. So current enjoyment and future happiness. What does that look like to young people, the next generation coming through? Because it looks slightly different to what it might have been for all of us when we were going through this process. So today's generation of young people is the most mental health conscious of any we've seen before. They are very aware of how their mindsets can affect their outcomes and are keen seekers of positive experience. So regardless of whether they're choosing to do an apprenticeship or whether they're choosing to do a university, they all are united in one factor, and that factor is happiness, enjoying their job long term. So when we asked them what was most important, it was enjoying their job, which was 47%, which was quite far in the lead against what we can see with the more practical other pieces, which was having job security and sufficient wage. And then what we've done is a similar question, but looking at it in terms of which route they're most likely to go down and why that was a massive decision for them. So with university, we can see that the top one was best for long-term career options. They're following their passions, their dreams. But for apprentices, that was just 29%. So there is a little bit of a difference in mindset when it comes to the various different options. For apprenticeships and going out to work, the main driver was wanting to earn money.
Teddie, can I just comment? It does feel like I can't help but feel, whose dreams and aspirations are they? Is it theirs or is it their parents? And I think, you know, your previous slide was about, you know, what we need to do for students. Actually, is it the students, or is it those influential people, the teachers, the parents? Because that's what we find. Because previously, you know, in your slide where it drops off at year 12, for me it feels, and everybody else on the call may disagree, but it feels like the students are bobbing along and they hear about they're going to have to get a job one day, and then the pressure intensifies in year 12 of, right, you've got to start making decisions. So then they start paying attention. And if you've got influential adults and your teachers all going, oh, well, go to university, well, of course apprenticeship's going to drop off. And you know, I was doing a presentation this week and it was just amazing, what's the word? Uneducation. Is that even a word? The lack of education in the room about these options. And there's a lot of yeah, but, and it's like, no, there's no yeah, but. This is a good, great, fantastic opportunity. And so for me, it feels like, yes, for students, but this follow passion dreams. Year 12, passion dreams. If they want to go to university, it's probably to go and socialise. But my experience, I've got a son at university, didn't even talk to me about early careers, because what do I know? Before I knew it, his bags were packed and he was off. But I look at the experience he's having, and I am really like, God, you are going to have to pull your finger out, kid, because you're in for a hell of a shot when you get into the world of work if this is what you think. You know what I mean? Lectures are still online. just literally like 3 days a week having some kind of education. I've got to ring him after this. He's just phoned me up, Mum, I've run out of money. I'm literally like, and to be fair, it's the first time in 18 months, but I'm just a little bit like, having spent a week, sorry, I'm going on, I ramble, you shouldn't take me off mute. Having spent a week with our apprentices who are literally like driven on it, want to do this, want to do that, what, you know, I just find it, anyway, I'll shut up now. I just wanted to make a comment.
I was going to sort of add as well. I mean, that slide you've got in front of us at the moment, Teddie. I'm absolutely fascinated by the best for long-term career, which is 60% for uni. It's under half of that at 26% for apprenticeships. Whilst in our sector, you know, in accountancy, which is probably not one you'd imagine apprenticeships was really all that relevant to, but in accountancy, I know a lot of employers who having a degree is actually a drawback. You know, particularly having a relevant degree, that, you know, they want the apprentices, and the apprentices actually tend to progress far quicker and actually earn more than potentially graduates who come in without the apprenticeship. So, you know, I think that there's probably a bit of a misinformation there that young adults think university is better for their careers, or actually, I think in a lot of professions, that's actually the complete opposite now.
Yeah.
Sorry to
oh, go.
No, I was just going to agree, because obviously we're in the accountancy industry, and I talk all the time to young people about, you know, go to university, do your 3 or 4 years, and you've still got your 3 years of professional qualification to do, or you can come post sixth form and do that same professional qualification in a much shorter period. We use AAT to start people off, and then that 3-year chartered qualification. So they're doing the same thing, getting to the same point in 5 years versus 6 or 7 years, and ending up at you know, with the same qualification. We don't treat them any differently. Nobody ever asks them which route they came by. You're either a chartered accountant or you're not. So it's absolutely the education piece for me, for the influencers. I completely agree with what Kim said.
Yeah, it is massive. And as we sort of, I've just had a scan through, when we go through, we cover things like experience, and like a massive driving factor in terms of what makes them want to be an apprentice is that case study value of physical evidence of where they can go. We also going to have just touch on the financial independence. So as I go through, I'll pick out themes of, you know, the parents, and then also what drives those apprentices that are in them, what drives them to make that decision. And I think a lot of why we've done this research is we all know that it's an amazing pathway. The employers love it. It's making sure that we can transfer that across to the students and the parents and the advisors, and make sure that they all have the same view that we do, which seems to be such a big barrier currently. So, so happiness, basically making sure that there is an emotional driver behind the campaigns that you offer as an employer. It's not, you know, making sure, obviously we can see that money is a massive motivator for them, but we want to make sure that they understand what they're doing, what it's going to be like. So one thing that stands out is the use of a case study. So they want to see genuine excitement and inspiration. And I know something came out in a magazine, and someone who was an apprentice is now a partner of an accountancy firm. Things like, they need to see those in real life format and as a case study to show them that an apprenticeship does give them that long-term career options. It's just showing it to them, you know, whether that's via TikTok and that sort of user generated content that they like to see. They love digital, we know that. Making sure that that's accessible to the student, but also to the parents, so that we can showcase to them what the output is. So next we have experience. So how experience shapes young people's choices and the need for it. So this is where we come on to sort of what I touched on just then. It's much easier for young people in school to naturally imagine themselves in university, because it's a familiar academic environment. So it's an easier place to imagine themselves in. As a less familiar, apprenticeships, you know, training providers and employers must paint a convincing and realistic picture in order for young people to truly understand the mechanics and the reality. So knowing what it's really like, so that if they were to do an apprenticeship, they know what they're to expect. If they've seen so much content on it, they may have even been in to the workplace, see what the office is like, because that is going to be a massive, massive change for them. So they're asking to see so much more content like that. So next, we've got independence and empowerment. So the ability young people have to make their own decisions and take responsibility for their futures. So we have parents and finances are two main themes that we're going to cover in this section. So financial independence and being able to earn their own money is a huge thing to look at, that people look at when looking at apprenticeships. The main draw to apprenticeships is the financial position, but one of the main drawbacks can be the money, which we touched on earlier about that long-term earning potential. So when it comes to apprenticeships, parents want a realistic view of salary and what is involved in the training. Most parents and carers are currently sourcing their own information and they're doing it by word of mouth. So that is number one at where they're getting their information from. So they are talking to people that they know, talking about apprenticeship. So we don't know how valuable that information is that they're receiving. We don't know how good it is. Are they talking to someone that's, you know, done an apprenticeship before? Are they just talking in general? They're doing a lot of online research and they're going to a lot of events as well. So online research is where UCAS comes in. And this is definitely part of the roadmap, what we've already got, but also what we are currently creating to increase the knowledge for this parent audience. And we touched on earlier, we reach about 30,000 parents and advisors every year. So parents will sign up to UCAS every year. So it's a new audience that we get in every year, and they are just asking for information. They're one of our most engaged audiences on UCAS, the ones that sign up. There's almost not enough emails that we can send them. So that's a positive, and that's definitely a way as an employer that you can connect directly with those parents. So those are the 6 key themes. Now we have a massive report. I've literally just sugar picked a couple of little bits that I thought were going to be of interest. So on the last slide of my presentation, there is a QR code, or you can email me or Gareth and we can send it across to you afterwards to have a bit of a deeper dive, which might answer some of the more questions that you've had throughout this. Perfect. So now we're looking at how can UCAS help. So mentioned earlier that massive over 1 million students signing up to UCAS every year. Here is the landscape of UCAS and the interest in apprenticeships that continues to grow. So back 4 years ago, which is just after I started, it was a tiny number, and that has dramatically grown year after year after year. So we are able to help you reach the right audience for your business needs. So we currently help employers. We have over 25 million unique visitors to UCAS.com this year. So 12 months as of today, we have had almost 500,000 students search for accounting or finance related jobs or apprenticeships on Career Finder. So that is on our job board. So that is quite a big number. Each year, out of that 1.5 million students that sign up to UCAS, about half of them are interested in apprenticeships. And like I said, this is growing year on year. About 5 years ago-ish, it was 10%. So it's been a massive, massive growth increase. We also have the influencer network that we can use to help you reach those audiences, whether that's advisors, whether that's parents. That's definitely something that we can do. And the tools to help you improve your reach. So someone mentioned job posting earlier. That's definitely something we can help you with. We've got employer profiles, email campaigns. We have such a massive network of tools, but what really makes UCAS unique is our data. So we have an absolutely huge data set, and we have a great talent pool of individuals. And what we can do is make sure that we target the students with the exact characteristics that you are searching for, create a really, really niche pool of students that's going to help you reach the right students for you. And we can do this through the various different tools that we have. So this is the brand new job board, just as a visual, just so that you can see what it's like. In terms of getting added on, we do offer free job posting for all employers. You can do the enhanced option, but as part of the parity, we need as many employers as possible to be putting their jobs on. So we are keeping it free to post all of your basic jobs. It's as simple as just coming to UCAS. There's a web form you can fill in, or you can come to myself direct, whether that's on LinkedIn, and we will get you onboarded with UCAS and get you set up, which also kind of links into the employer profiles that we have on UCAS. So like I mentioned earlier, not only are the vacancies sort of side by side, but if you were to type in accounting in, it will show you employers that offer that area and also universities that offer that area. And this is shown to them in the form of an employer profile that are on ucas.com. These have been around for 2 years, 18 months, and we're still building on them. So we have 2 versions. We're going to be bringing in the recruitment microsite too. So if they see you as an employer, they can automatically see your job straight away. They are an amazing tool. Students can filter by industry. They will soon be able to filter by location. And it's just a way to make it as easy as possible, but to also sell you as an organisation and what's at the heart of you as an organisation, rather than just the job itself. And then we have Talent Finder, which is our matching service. So Talent Finder is, as I mentioned, we have 1.5 million students sign up to UCAS every year. They get the opportunity, so they make this choice if they want to sign up to what is called on their side Smart Alerts. And they will tell us, go into so much depth knowledge, they'll tell us what GCSEs they have, they'll tell us what level apprenticeship they're interested in, what industry they're interested in. We can do various different ED&I indicators, we can do widening participation. So it's so simple that if one of you came to us and went, right, I want 40 applicants for my accounting apprenticeship, this is the postcode, we'll do a 60-mile drive time, they have to have 5 GCSEs, and it's a level 6. We can just match them automatically and they get sent a notification to apply for your role.
Excuse me, Teddie, can I just ask a question?
Of course.
If we were to advertise on UCAS, say next week,
yeah,
are we likely to get interested candidates in the next sort of month or so?
Yes, definitely.
It's not dependent on the time of year particularly, or is it?
So there are spikes of the time of year. So we see a lot of traffic sort of that September, October time. We also see a lot of traffic during National Apprenticeship Week. And one of our biggest spikes on the job board is actually clearing. Is one of the biggest spikes that we have. So you have those big spikes, but it is consistent level throughout the year, other than those key dates.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's okay. Perfect. So Talent Finder has been hugely successful. I mean, you look at the open rate and click-through rates, the students are absolutely loving it. And it's kind of fed into that early connect pilot that we're doing. So ensuring that the students are getting the support that they need. Also, the employers are getting the support that they need as well. We also have email and paid media, which is on the next slide. The data aspect that I spoke about, being able to segmentate all of this wealth of data. Once we have that data pool for you, it's up to you how you then reach out. So you can go by the traditional email route, or you can look at something like paid media, which is where we can use that user-generated content. So we work with a lot of employers in terms of TikTok campaigns. So we know that a lot of businesses are a bit umming and ahhing about how they can use TikTok. So a lot of employers will come through us to run TikTok campaigns for them. And they are hugely successful, and they're super easy to make because it's user-generated content. You don't need any fancy recording equipment. It's literally just a student on their phone filming a video. The day in the life content works really well, and it's also giving the chance to give that student a look into, you know, what would it be like to do that apprenticeship and be in that environment as well. And then we also have UCAS events. So these are year 12 students. So just as we start to see that drop off, this is where our events come into play. So we have, I think it's 38 we have across the UK. So Scotland, Wales, we have them all across the UK. And the idea is there should be an event within around 90-minute drive time of any student within the UK. And they're absolutely amazing events. They're so full of so much energy. We obviously have the 3 big ones, London, Birmingham, Manchester. And then we have our much smaller campus events, which are more intimate. And they are very, very different to each other, but they are absolutely great events. Probably one of my favourite products that we offer at UCAS. And we've been running these events for years. It's just the apprenticeship aspect of things has kind of come in the last sort of 5 years. And it's one area that the students are super interested in. We did a heat map at one of our events, I think it was Birmingham, and the traffic just going straight into the apprenticeship zone was absolutely massive. So we are looking to increase the amount of employers that we have at our events to give as much information, advice and guidance to the students as possible, and making sure that they're talking peer-to-peer, so talking directly to apprentices that are currently in that situation as well. So here is the QR code if you would like to download that report. There's also the URL. It's super interesting read. It's quite long, but it's definitely will be useful when having a look at your attraction campaigns for the next few years. Is there any questions, Gareth?
We covered, I think, the questions that came in at the time. So I think we've now answered Richard's question when you can start advertising, which is now. Straight away.
How do you start advertising?
So it's everyone has a dedicated account manager. So if you want to email me, one of my members of the team will just get you set up. Everything comes to us. We upload them for you. If you want to make any amendments, we'll take them down, change them for you. So it all goes through UCAS.
Okay, lovely, thanks.
That's okay.
Actually, Teddie, I mean, given we are accountants and we'll be interested in numbers, I mean, in terms of the different services, what's the sort of financial angle on those?
So we work with clients from anywhere from £2,000 all the way up to £100,000. It completely varies depending on what service. So the sort of entry level side of things is the promoted jobs and the enhanced employer profiles, which the two of them together are about £5,000. Sorry.
Because am I right in thinking because the basic employer profiles are free? Am I right?
Yeah, basic's free, basic job postings free, to make sure that we're in line with that parity of search. The events, we are literally just about to kick them off right at the beginning of March. They completely vary. So the cheapest event is Campus One. I think it's just shy of 1.5K. And then we have great subscription packages. So they include, I think it's like 5 different events for £5,500. So it's really not too steep of cost based off the audiences that you'll be able to meet. So for example, London, last year we had over 15,000 young people attend across 2 days, which is absolutely massive traffic.
Thank you, Teddie.
That's okay.
Any other, questions or observations, comments?
Teddie, I've just direct messaged you about something. Can you just confirm you've got it, please?
Of course. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thanks.
No other questions at the moment.
Gareth, can you hear me?
Yeah, Zoe.
Yeah. Hi, it's Sophie. So
I'm sorry.
That's right. That's fine. Don't worry. Sounds very similar. Don't worry. You get away. You nearly got away with that. Quick question about usability. So bearing in mind. So I'm just thinking about the role of the employer. Of course, we have our own website, and every time we advertise new apprenticeship vacancies, they are posted there. The next layer is that we then post those apprenticeship vacancies onto the government's website as well, which is clunky, if I'm honest. It takes a lot of time. If you have vacancies which are multiple location, you have to enter them as many locations as you need them to be. So now layering on top of that, if we then use UCAS as well, I'm just thinking there's a lot of time involved in all of this activity, isn't there? Is there any view around UCAS? So I think I know what your answer will be about, is UCAS going to be the preferred place to advertise all apprenticeships? Of course, that's going to be a yes. Do the government have you been speaking to the government about how you kind of relay the two things together?
So our whole new job board, the reason why it's taken us years to build, it's been in production for ages, is we actually work in partnership with the government. So if you put we've built ours so that it fits with the government website. So if your roles are already on there, they should pull through to ucas.com.
Okay.
So please feel free to check if you want to go in. If you go on ucas.com and search, that your role should automatically pull through, and the whole point is so that everyone's not duplicating work. They should pull through for each other.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Sophie. Any others?
Yeah, I was just going to say about how fantastic this is, and I think it's brilliant to have so much sort of raising awareness and having that, you know, comparison between the options that we've got with going to uni. They're able to see everything that's available at the employers. So we're definitely, we work with a lot of employers, and we'll be encouraging them and sharing your link with them as well to be able to have a look at this. And I encourage them to get it up, because we have a page on our website, but if they've got this to go to and it's just an opportunity to get it out there in front of more people, which is brilliant. You did mention we saw in the presentation, and you mentioned as well at the beginning about the fact that it's quite often the influence of parents and careers advisors, particularly at year 12, but also the fact that careers advisors do not have very much confidence when it comes to talking about apprenticeships, because they're much more comfortable talking about university. So what is there that we can do to help to build up the confidence of those careers advisors, and what is it that you're doing too?
So I think definitely the approach we're taking is trying to give them as much advice and guidance as possible. So a great way for employers to do this is helping those teachers give them aids, so that there's something that they can use that's almost like pre-made for them to use in the classroom. So it's aiding them and helping them to deliver that level of information to the classroom. It is a great way for employers to help with that knowledge. I mean, every year we have a teacher and advisor conference, and if we look back at 5 years ago, there wasn't a single mention of apprenticeships really, and now the whole conference is a 2-day conference, and the whole point is to educate teachers and advisors. And now it is pretty much 50-50 in terms of the advice and guidance that we give. We have workshops, we have so much that's going on, and it's been like this will probably be the third year that it's been like that. And every year the amount of apprenticeship content that's coming into this event is getting so much more. So hopefully that's going to start to trickle down, and I can imagine the more students that the advisors are helping through, the more knowledge they're going to gain. So I think it is going to be a process, but I think we are on the right track.
Thank you.
I do think the parity of search leads to parity of visibility, and hopefully leads to parity of credibility.
Definitely.
Anybody for any other questions, comments, observations? I hope everyone shares my excitement at this. Such a big change, and as Teddie said, I mean, UCAS has got to be, I would suggest, the biggest brand in education in the UK, and to have that weight behind apprenticeships is it's just another great step forward for raising the profile.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, if there's no more questions, I mean, Teddie's given her email address there, so I'm sure she'll be more than delighted. Sounds like you've already got an email or two to cope with, Teddie. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, particularly given it's such a busy week. I hope I can call on you to perhaps speak in the future on other things that we do, because I think we're going to be doing an awful lot to raise the profile of what you're doing with apprenticeships. I do think it's exciting. So thank you very much, Teddie. Thank you everyone who's come along and asked questions and contributed. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I think we all deserve a nice quiet-ish weekend, I think. Thanks all.